Hey, man.
What's up, dude?
Have you ever heard of Doggerland?
Sorry, Doggerland?
Yeah.
Dogger.
Yeah.
Dogger.
Yes.
Doggerland.
Yeah.
What I hope that it is a massive theme park that is dog themed.
Close. It's actually a massive theme park that is Dog the Bounty Hunter themed.
No, shut up. That'd be so freaking cool, dude. Things I learned last night. TILLN it. Every little concession stand sells like Milo's sweet tea or whatever, the official fuel of bounty hunters. All right.
Like holding it over their shoulder.
Oh yeah, my favorite ride. You get into like his arms. You know, it's like one of those like arms come down over you, and then the whole ride is just like, dude, you can turn your life around. You know,
It's literally.
does he have catchphrases?
What's up, dog?
What? You get shirts say "Dog bless,"
Dog bless.
And they sell his sunglasses.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously the
signature
trademark
sunglasses.
and like a wig.
Yep.
Dude, this Doggerland.
A black like wife beater. Yeah,
Ooh.
it's got some potential.
I'll go. Where do we
Dog?
get tickets?
Oh,
I think you just have to hop the fence. That's kind of like how it goes. You say dog.com.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I like dog. Better.
Dog.
Dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Dog.
Have you ever been to that website?
Yeah. You get a ticket and then you don't pay for it. And that's how you get in the park. Because they'll issue a warrant and then yeah.
There is a dog.com though.
Is there?
Yeah,
What's on there?
Dogs.
I mean,
yeah, you can buy dog food and flea and tick stuff.
oh,
It's really kind of
okay.
lame.
The dog, the animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like 100 pictures of Dog the Bounty Hunter and one of Snoop Dogg.
Oh, and then as you're walking through the park, it's playing an instrumental version of "Who Let the Dogs Out." You know, all day on loop.
Not even like that. Like Chick-fil-A's instrumental like worship tracks.
Yes, yeah,
where
yeah.
It's like violin and like. Can we make a ringtone?
I don't like this. Who's calling me? Who would I make that their ringtone?
Is your ringtone "Who Let the Dogs Out"?
No, my ringtone is the Chick-fil-A version of "Who Let the Dogs Out."
That's incredible. Have we talked about the bounty hunter that moved in my apartment?
Yeah, that's why I made that sweet tea joke, because he was carrying the jug, you know?
Okay, that makes sense. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
we've covered that.
That makes total sense. Okay, well, let me ask you this. If you don't know what Doggerland is, have you ever heard of the Richat structure?
What? The what?
Richat structure.
Richat?
Yeah. Depending on who you are, you might hear some people pronounce it Richat structure, but
No.
Richat sounds a lot better to me, so I'm going to ignore what everybody else says. You should
Richat
pronounce it like-
structure.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is it building?
Presumably.
Why did you... Okay, I'm going to quit guessing. How about you just tell us the facts?
Well, hey, let me ask you this.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Have you ever heard of...
Have you ever heard of Kumari Kandam?
That's that comedian, right?
Yeah. That's that guy. I've actually
Kumari... No, that's what you can order at a fancy restaurant. It's like they say it's squid, but it's actually just pieces of rubber that they fried in the back. Like just dip that in that fancy sauce. You can't even tell.
You can't even tell.
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's not that.
Here, I actually just had a few topics I was going to throw out until you got one of them.
Let's try
this. Hey, man, have you ever heard of the Bermuda Triangle?
Is that a...
Oh, my God.
You know, I had a thought.
Oh, man.
Well, I had a thought and then I lost it.
Oh, man. I hate that joke.
I lost it in the Bermuda Triangle. You get it?
I get it. I get it. I hate that joke.
Well,
so you've heard of that one?
Well, I mean, I've dabbled.
Great. We'll talk about that then.
At the center of the Bermuda Triangle is a place called Doggerland.
Yeah, actually, everything I just said is another name for the Bermuda Triangle. And the Bermuda Triangle...
Wait, is it actually?
No.
Oh, gosh.
But everything I just said is a theory, including the Bermuda Triangle. Not... So, forget...
Okay.
So, here.
What?
Doggerland, the Richat structure, Kumari Kandam, Bermuda Triangle, they all have something in common. You know what that is?
They're all related.
They
all have the same dad and different moms.
It's Dog the Bounty Hunter.
They all have something in common.
You want to know what they have in common?
Sure.
Well, let me ask you this.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, man.
What?
Have you ever heard of Atlantis?
The lost city of Atlantis?
Yeah, have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, no, I performed there. Yeah, they got
Really?
they got a comedy club. We stayed in the hotel there, right?
I think you're thinking of Atlanta.
Atlantis Falcons.
I think Atlantis Falcons.
We were like, I can't find this city. I was like, I know where it is. I can give you directions.
Yeah, I've stayed there a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got
it was all right.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool hotel we stayed in.
It was. It was a very nice hotel.
How did that happen? How did we end up there? How did we get that hotel?
We were going to see my friend Lexi.
But wait, no. I don't care why we were in Atlanta. I want to know why we got that hotel.
I think I had points.
We're not rich. Oh.
I had like a lot of points, and we were like, oh, let's just splurge.
Nice.
Or did we just split the cost of the hotel for the heck of it?
We might have.
I think we were just kind of like, dude, I mean, we're in Atlantis. We might as well.
Atlantis. You know what they say? When in Atlantis, buy expensive hotels.
Okay, hold on. Now, the sentence you said, because you didn't say when in Atlantis. You said when Atlantis, which is a different sentence. So, when Atlantis, buy expensive hotels.
It was shorthand.
Which I will also clarify, we didn't buy the hotel.
Jared and I actually, we went in and we own a hotel in Atlantis.
I had enough points. And at a certain point, Holiday Inn is just like, guys, dude, take it. We don't care.
Hey, I got 60,000 points. I'll throw in another $20. Can I buy this hotel? And they were like, great, yeah, Four Seasons.
Wi-Fi is not included, but sure.
Wi-Fi would be like another 100,000 points, but you got enough to get at least a hotel.
That's fine. Okay, so we're talking about Atlantis?
Yeah, we're talking about Atlantis today.
Oh, heck yeah. Okay.
I've been pretty excited for this for a long time.
Well, hold on.
Reasons.
How long did that take us to get to Atlantis? Because I want to know if anyone's still listening to this.
8 minutes.
It took us 8 minutes to get to the topic.
Yeah, no.
No. Is that 8 minutes on top of the 4 we wasted earlier? Yeah, see?
The first question I asked you
was
about
Doggerland?
Atlantis. It's about Atlantis.
Okay.
So here, let's start here.
No!
Let's start here.
Get rid of the... Okay.
So do you know what Atlantis is?
Do you know what Atlantis... Do you know what a land is?
Do you know what a lamp is?
Do you know what a loop is? I'm done.
Do you know what a loofah is?
Oh my goodness.
Do you know what a loofah is?
That one doesn't... Okay, loofah. How is that related to Atlantis? Go ahead and bring that one around.
It's one of the theories of where Atlantis is. It's in
Yeah.
loofah.
Well, I mean, like the feeling I have toward this podcast is pretty aloofa, you know.
Okay. Anyways, so we'll just jump into our topic today.
Dive in.
It's
underwater.
I'm diving in. I'm going
Dude.
deep. In over my head, I wanna be caught in the rush, lost in the flow.
Stop!
In over my head.
You almost said the time thing where we would have to like pay royalties on that. Like, I think if you only do it like 9 seconds, we're good. But if you kept going, yeah, we'd have to pay them. And like, I'm not gonna pay for that crappy cover.
Yeah, I'll change it. Lost in the brush, lost in the glow. I just changed. See, now it's not. Now it's a parody. Anyways,
Okay.
so Atlantis was a place, maybe.
All right. If you're still listening to
That
this,
existed.
honestly, thank you for listening to the TILLN podcast. Thank you for putting up with this. I would like to express that I'm as frustrated as you are. But this is like our last full episode of the season, or at least of the half before our season break. What do you call that?
3.1,
Mid-season?
3.0. We'll be at
3.0?
there will be a 3.5.
No, we're like the last full episode before the break.
We're breaking up.
Yeah, well,
Are you
no,
breaking?
we're going on a break. It's different.
We were on a break. So let me tell you about Atlantis. There's this guy named Plato. Some of you guys might have heard of him.
Yeah, I played with him as a kid. We were best friends.
I
Also,
knew that joke was coming before you literally
Yeah.
said a word.
dude, also, I've been in his closet before. It's like thrifted clothes. And they're super picky about what they'll take too. Like,
And they don't give you what it's worth.
They'll pick up a ratty T-shirt with holes in it. They'll be like, "I'll give you $27 for this." Well, they'll pick up a brand new shirt,
Yeah.
like never been worn. They'll be like, "This does not fit in our store."
We can't take this in our closet. Our closet doesn't have room for this. So Plato, he was a dude. A lot of people look at him as a guy who knows a lot about philosophy because that's what he did, and that's what he's famous for.
A lot of people look at him for that, but you look at him for what?
A guy who talked about Atlantis first that we know about.
Oh, really?
So in Plato's Republic, he talks about kind of like an ideal society, and he touches on this place that he calls Atlantis, which is where all of our modern ideas of this utopia of Atlantis comes from.
That's what the cartoon's based on.
Yes, yeah. So he made the cartoon.
He's one of the lead animators.
Yeah, he drew it, but nobody used it for years.
People were like, "That's dumb."
yeah, everyone was like,
They're like, "What are cartoons?"
yeah, they're like, Plato, this doesn't make any sense.
Like, get back in your closet, you freaking psychopath.
Like you should make stuff out of clay, man. So that's where that started.
Yeah, sculptures.
Yeah, the sculptures.
Yeah.
He started sculptures. Anyways, so what he talked about was this ancient civilization that existed years before he even lived. So if you go from today's time, it'd be about 12,000 years
Plato
ago.
lived when?
About 3,000 years ago. So it was 9,000 years before his time.
So we're talking 12,000. No, yes, 12,000 years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
So approximately 11,947 years from, what is it, 1960?
1962 is our
62?
reference point. Yeah. No, I hear you. Okay.
I don't know if my math's right there. I just did it offhand, and I didn't even do math. I just picked a number that seemed like it was relatively close.
We all got the joke.
Good. Glad. All right. So Atlantis was this town that supposedly fell to some sort of natural disaster. It looked like it sunk into the ocean, is what Plato says.
Wouldn't that be terrifying?
Yeah.
Like, we're just sitting here doing a podcast, and then suddenly my neighbor's house is just in the ocean.
But why not yours?
Well, God's favor.
Oh gosh! So this is really ironic that you said that. The reason why he said that they were eaten up by the earth or the ocean was because of their hubris, and so he said that the Atlanteans were this mighty power, the most advanced civilization that the planet had ever seen. To that point, they had better technology, they had a stronger navy. They were like just the most advanced power in the world, and they thought that nobody was ever gonna mess with them.
But then all their gold statues weighed down their land, and they slowly sunk into the ocean.
But then
that's a real fear of mine.
That your gold will sink you into the ocean.
That's why I don't wear a lot of jewelry. Like I just don't want to weigh myself down.
And so. But then he says that, like, hey, you don't be cocky, basically, is the moral of the story, because the ocean will
eat you. The ocean will eat you.
Exactly.
That's a good scare tactic.
Yep. And so then it was kind of something that Plato talked about, but nobody really recognized until I think it was like the 1890 something. I got to find the date. I don't have it on hand. But in that era, there was this guy who really just hated America. He's like everything about America is stupid. Like the industrialization is dumb. It's ruining the planet.
Only in the 1890s?
Yeah,
that's the only guy that's ever hated America.
Yeah. And so he made this big deal about like basically America having this huge cockiness, and like he's like everything's a lie, like everything that happens in the ballot boxes is a lie, everything that the government's doing is a lie, like it's all just dumb. And so then he drew
is true.
He drew from Plato's Atlantis, and so he was the person who brought it into like the modern thought, and everyone was like, wait a second, there was this like there's this whole thing that like sunk into the ocean that we don't know about. And so then everybody was like, I'm gonna go search for that treasure, and then it just became like it blew into pulp culture.
Right.
Pulp.
Okay. So it blows up into pup culture. Pup.
Like Pup the Bounty Hunter. That's when he started his career.
His son. He's the son of Dog. Hi, my name is Dog. This is my son, Pup. Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh. Anyways, frick.
One day he'll have a litter of his own.
Okay. I was trying to figure out how to work that in, and I couldn't get it, so I gave up. But all these people started to come up with all these theories about where Atlantis would be.
Yeah.
And Plato gave a few indications of where it might be.
So is Doggerland Atlantis?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So he gave a few indications of where it might be. So he describes Atlantis as being a city made up of a few concentric circles of land masses separated by water. And so there was one central circle, and then water, and then another ring around that of land, and then water, and then another ring of land around that, and then more water, and then really, really far out, another ring of land. And so it was just like this navy that would protect the whole thing, and then their big city was on those little rings of land around the middle. And then it was attached by like bridges. So very interesting concept. Does not sound natural. Sounds like they would have had to create that on your own. So you would think, okay, they got to be at least advanced enough to dig. Sorry, I don't know why that was just really funny to me.
Advanced enough to dig? How long do you think it took humans to figure that out?
Yo, Cyberus, look at this.
Oh.
Look at that. It just goes down.
Dude. You. Doggerland. You're digging like a dog right there. Teach my pup how to do that. What do you think you think they had figured out how to have like excavators at that time? That's what all you need to dig? Do you subscribe to the conspiracy theory that the Egyptians were more technologically advanced than we are?
Yeah, I kind of think so.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure we're on the same page about that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a different episode.
Great.
Because they knew how to dig.
The Egyptians, they freaking dig dug, man.
What? That's actually how the name Doug came into existence.
Oh gosh. Okay, yeah, and so then they had their concentric circles, right?
Yeah.
We also know he described them as having. It was very difficult to get to Atlantis because you had to pass through an impassable field of mud, is what he described it as, which is very weird. But it made it very difficult to get to.
Yeah, it's like a moat, but it's a mud field. I've also built one out front.
That's where they put all the stuff they dug.
Yeah, I'm like, you can't come in
somewhere.
You got to get through my mud field.
And they were just like, throw it in the ocean out there a little bit, just a little away from us.
Just a little bit.
And then they put enough that it just kind of just became a bunch of mud.
Right, became a trash bridge.
It became a puddle of mud, if you would.
All right. Is that what you wanted to get to? Is that what you wanted to?
No.
Okay.
But it was funny. Anyways.
But it was funny.
And then we also know that it was beyond the pillars.
These are all the clues they're using to figure out where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is what Plato gave us.
So he just got to find a mud field.
Yeah, find a mud field. Can't be that hard. Find a place where there's just a ton of mud.
Okay.
The 90s came, and we found a lot of... Anyways.
That's what you want to stick with that.
No. Another clue he gave us was it was beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which if you don't know what that is, you're not going to find... I drank a Bang before I came here today.
So if you don't know what it is, it's straight out of luck, because we're not going to tell you. We're out here to find our own treasure, you idiots. Yeah, it's straight up from the Pillars of Hercules, which if you got no clue what that is, good. Screw you. Why are you listening to an educational podcast and trying to figure this out? Because we're not going to tell you anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, I do,
okay,
actually.
Cool.
So
I just thought you wait. Well, if you don't know what it is, that sucks.
Sucks to suck, guys. No, so it's actually what the ancient Greeks called the Strait of Gibraltar.
Man.
Remember in SSX Tricky, whenever you got to the Gibraltar level and you were like, what the frick is that called?
And
what?
What?
And then you jumped on and it was like, it's to rock, it's tricky. You know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That PS2 game.
Oh,
SSX Tricky.
yes. Yeah.
On the snowboards?
On the snowboards?
Then you got on the...
Are you saying
there was a girl in 6th grade? I went to her house and she had SSX Tricky, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And so I bought her a necklace.
There was a girl from my school that I went over, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to play SSX Tricky?" And I went, "I'm saving that for marriage." You realize halfway through where I was going with it. We swallow your water, dude. What's wrong? So, why you giggle weird? Just spit it out, dude. What? I'm crying right now. You just swallow the water. Oh, did you spit it on my carpet? Did you just spit that out on the carpet of my house where I live?
You said
you just spit. There's a sink right there. There's a sink right 4 feet away from you, and you just went, "Okay, I'm gonna spit it out on the carpet." I rent here, dude. Like what? Like, come on.
It's just spit. Mostly water.
Oh, well, I've got my tears on the carpet now. I just spit that out on my carpet.
You told me to.
I told you to. Okay. Oh, man.
Oh, gosh.
Well, that. It's not as much.
It'll dry.
Oh, stop. That's okay. I'm going to think about it the rest of the time, though. Did it turn to mud, though?
Yeah, I'm trying to pass this this puddle of mud.
Good luck getting past this. It's just a field of their spit.
Good luck trying to get past this, treasure hunters.
Oh, yeah. Indiana Jones. Okay, so, golly.
So it's beyond the pillars of Hercules.
The Strait of Gibraltar.
That's the little narrow passage of water that separates the Mediterranean from the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
And so basically what it means is it's past the Mediterranean. And a lot of people think that means it's in the Atlantic Ocean. But it really could just mean anywhere that's not the Mediterranean, because you got to leave the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So it could be anywhere else. So that's pretty much all Plato gives us about.
And on that, people ran with it.
Yeah, people freaking took it and ran. He did say a lot of stuff. He talked about how they had an incredible navy. They were super advanced. But it seems that more of the point of the story is the lesson you can learn, the moral that you can learn from it, which is what Plato did. Plato, there's a lot of stories Plato told. He was kind of like Jesus. He told parables, and they kind of they had a moral of the story, which is kind of the way a lot of people taught in that day.
Like Dr. Seuss also did that.
Yeah,
There's always
Dr.
a moral
Seuss
at the
was
end.
around at the same time. Dr. Seuss was a contemporary of Plato.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss is Plato.
Dogger Seuss.
Doggerland.
A lot of people mistake Dogger Seuss for doctor.
Oh,
it sounds
got
pretty
it.
similar.
I got it. Yeah.
Anyways, so probably the prevailing theory that most people would accept is that Atlantis doesn't exist. It's a place that Plato made up to teach a lesson, which is viable considering there's a lot of other things that he made up to teach a lesson. And
a lot of stuff I've made up. Just for the heck of it.
Just making stuff up is fun.
Yeah, just lying.
Lying
all the time.
Is funny. And then also in that
what
same
if
story,
Plato came back through a time machine or whatever, and came back and we were like, okay, so where is Atlantis? And he was like, wait a minute, what?
He's like, wait, you guys thought that was real?
You guys have been so there's people who have dedicated their entire lives to finding this place that I made up.
He's like, that's pretty good. Anybody find the cave yet?
They're like, wait a minute, there's a cave?
And then they just freaking run.
Yeah.
But another issue with it is that when you look at the story, he does talk about how nobody was ever able to defeat the Atlanteans in battle, except for the Greeks. But when you look at the time when he says that Atlantis was destroyed, it was thousands of years before Greek civilization even began. And so there's just some timeline stuff that doesn't really line up and make any sense at all. And so a lot of people are like, yeah, there's no way this is real. It just doesn't line up.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean a lot of other people weren't like, yeah, this is totally real. We're going to find it.
Yeah, obviously. I would hear those facts and go, no, it's still made up. It's out there. It's out there.
It's out there.
I've made up my mind.
My mind's made up. This is real. So I want to take a look at a couple.
My mind's made
theories.
up, but this is.
My mind's made up, but this is not made up.
This is real.
Oh my gosh! How funny is that? I just realized how funny that phrase is, because to say that you're certain about something, you have to say that your brain is made up.
Yeah.
My brain is. I just made it up.
My brain's made up.
My mind's made up. That's ironic, and I really like that. Anyways, I want to talk about some of the theories. Probably the
only
biggest,
of all.
Only of all. Only of all. I want to talk about all the different theories. The biggest theory is that it's somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, because how perfect would that be if the town named Atlantis was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean?
That's what I thought.
It
would
makes
make
a
sense.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Well, here's the thing. Both of the things seem to be named after the Greek god Atlas. Named after the Greek god Atlantis. No, the Greek god Atlas is where we get Atlantic and Atlas and Atlanta. They're all named after the Greek god Atlas.
It checks out.
Yeah. Atlantis was supposedly on the island of Atlas, which isn't a thing, and is where Atlas, the god, is from, and he's the god who supposedly holds up planet Earth,
right?
Like this. Hold on. like that.
Well, it would roll off your hand. You got to shift your hand around. So,
Like that grid, like.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Is your head the earth in this?
My head's a little bit of a support.
Okay.
So like the earth.
That hand's not gonna cut it.
A lot of people don't know this, but the earth has a little bulge right here because of Atlas's head. It like bulges up.
Yeah.
That's where the currents come from in the sea. It's
Oh,
his head.
got it. It's all
moving,
like
it's flowing around his head.
It's
a weird thing.
Yeah.
And so he's holding it like this.
It's not a weird thing. You know, it's just a different thing.
And one day Hercules was trying to get all these golden apples, and Atlas had one, but it was in his pocket. And Hercules was like, "Hey, can I have that?" And he's like, "I'm busy, Hercules. I'm holding up the earth."
And he's like, "No, but I really want it right now."
Yeah. And he's like, Hercules was like, "I'll just reach in and grab it." And he's like, "Nah, man, we don't know each other like that. Don't reach my pocket." And Hercules was like, I can hold the earth for you for a second. And Atlas is like, "No, you can't, man. This is pretty heavy. Like,
dude, go find your pillars.
You don't have the gains for this."
So they're competitive?
And so then finally, Hercules tricks Atlas, and Atlas hands him Earth for a second, and then Hercules takes the
Earth and runs.
takes the Earth. He's like, "This is my Earth now. This is totally my Earth now. I go to church every Sunday."
What?
You gonna bring the demons out of me, Atlas? That was a Hot Rod reference.
Okay. I was like, where did this fall off the rails?
But you know Atlas, right?
I know who you're. Yeah. That actually all made sense to me. Yeah.
So the prevailing theory then is that it's somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. So a lot of people have just looked around there on Google Maps. Haven't managed to find anything.
A lot of people have just gone out in a boat and just been like, well, today's the day. A lot of people put up missing continent islands or posters. They were like, has anybody seen this continent?
Have you seen? Yeah. So the one of the theories, which I forgot to ask you about. So, hey, dude.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the island of Mu?
Well, they're cows?
No.
Oh, well, then no.
So there's a theory that there once existed another continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean called the land of Mu. I called it an island a second ago, but I don't think that's sufficient.
Have you heard of the island, the United States of America?
But yeah, apparently the theory is that there was a massive continent right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean because there's a guy in the late 1800s who theorized, I think his name was Ignatius L. Donnelly, who was like, I'm pretty sure, and this all came from just this. He's like, I'm pretty sure the Atlantic Ocean is only about 100 feet deep anywhere. There wasn't really any reason for him to believe it.
Yeah. He just kind of looked at it and went,
Probably about 100.
100 feet deep.
It was like when you're a dad and your kid's like, "Hey, Dad, how deep is the ocean?" And you're like, 100. And everyone was like, "That's it." And
That's
so
it.
like literally everyone was
it's more like when a kid is at school and someone's like, "How tall is your dad?" And he goes, 100 feet tall. And all the other kids are like, "Oh, that checks out."
That checks out. I believe it. Yeah. So everybody just like was like, "Yeah, the Atlantic is about 100 feet deep." And the crust shifts and moves in the Atlantic so much because
that's where they thought waves came from.
Yeah, they're like
the ocean floor was just
going, and they said that there once was a continent in the middle called the land of Mu, and that's where Atlantis was, and it just sunk. Also, the Garden of Eden, it just sunk. That's what people said.
It's a theory.
A lot of people actually theorize that Atlantis, the center of Atlantis, was the Garden of Eden. It was right in the center of the city.
Okay.
And so it's like the birthplace of civilization.
It makes sense if you had like the birthplace of civilization that you guys would be kind of like, we're the best, you know? And then people are like, well, there's a reason you sunk.
Yeah, there's a reason why you're not in that garden anymore. That, you know,
Your garden's
the apples that Hercules took.
What if during when the flood happened, that's when Atlantis got covered up?
That is a theory.
Know? Is it?
That is a theory.
That's a Ken Ham theory, isn't it?
It's a very Ken Ham theory.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty sure Ken Ham's got that little in the ark. His little ark up in Ohio.
Yeah. It's in Kentucky. It makes more sense in Kentucky. Isn't it?
I don't know. Actually.
It might be on the river between Ohio and Kentucky.
Ken Ham's ark.
It's the Ham boat.
It's the Creation Museum. It's in Kentucky. Frack.
Yeah, don't challenge me on my Christian subculture.
Wait. Oh, what? Hold on. What?
No, they put it there because they thought it was the most central. What?
Hold on. I'm reading. Can't you see I'm reading?
No, your transition context changed.
Okay. It is literally like it's not. It's in Kentucky.
It's like on the border.
Right here. It says minutes from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah. Because it's like on the border. Because they wanted it to be like central to like all these Midwest people.
I had a Bang energy drink before I came. I don't know if I said that already, but
you said it 4 times now.
I am wired.
Yeah. Do you want me to get my oils diffuser? We can diffuse another one?
Yeah, let's get it diffused.
Okay, is that why you spit on my carpet? This Bang energy drink? You were just like, this makes sense.
There's a warning on the back of
What's
it
going
that
on
says 18 years or older. Did you know that?
No, I did not know.
Bang energy drink. It says if you're under 18, we really recommend you don't drink this because it'll probably kill you. But if you're over 18, we don't care what happens.
Is that word for word?
Yeah.
Okay, so Land of Mu is another theory.
The Land of Mu is a theory of where Atlantis is. I think it's bogus because we've now figured out that the Atlantic Ocean is a lot deeper than 100 feet.
It's 200 feet.
More like 110. No, there's like it's miles deep, and so the likelihood of there being a continent buried underneath that ocean is not high.
Yeah.
Here's another theory: the Bermuda Triangle. And I like this one a little bit just because it's fun to me. So their theory is that the Bermuda Triangle, right smack dab in the center is where Atlantis was, and all their ancient technology is what's messing with everything that flies over or boats over. Boats?
Floats and boats over,
Floats, boats,
floats
and jets.
over or boats over.
And that's why it messes with everything that flies through that. The problem with this is a couple things. One, here's the thing about the Bermuda Triangle that I don't think a lot of people know. I learned this about a year ago. I don't know why you need to know when I learned this.
I learned this on November 16th, 2018.
Anyways.
A mere 56 years after 1962. Is when I partook of this knowledge.
Here's a lot of people don't recognize this, but the Bermuda Triangle, the incidents that happen in the Bermuda Triangle, 90% of them happen outside of the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. And most of them are like instances of planes disappearing from radar or boats sinking. Or just going missing and we don't know where they are. Like things like that.
Normal stuff.
Bermuda Triangle stuff.
Whatever.
But yeah, they're mostly outside of the Bermuda Triangle. But it seemed cooler if it was in a triangle that attached a few places in that area. Yeah. It was just cooler sounding Bermuda Triangle rather than Bermuda like.
It's kind of like it happening in the Bermuda Triangle is a lot better than having on your website minutes from the Bermuda Triangle.
It is. You want it in.
Yeah.
So everybody just kind of lied. I think part of the issue with the Bermuda Triangle too is that most of the radar at the time just wasn't super advanced, and so
people were dropping off the radar all the time.
Yeah, people were. It was like getting ghosted. These planes were just ghosting people. They were just like. All right, we're not talking about Bermuda Triangle today. That's another theory that it's in the Bermuda Triangle, but there's not really any hard evidence to
suggest that.
To suggest it. There is a pretty large archipelago going from Florida out to like the edge of Puerto Rico, and anywhere where you see an archipelago, that's a pretty good indicator that there once was a much larger landmass there, and what you're seeing now is like the tips of the mountains that were in that landmass, and so long before all of everything started melting because we're too hot.
What?
This probably was like Florida probably went out way further.
Sure.
And like hit Cuba and Puerto Rico and all the way down the archipelago. But
I think I subscribe to the idea that all the continents fit together at one point, right? Like a Pangea.
Like if you just push them together, it's like a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it makes sense. No, it does make sense. Are you serious?
No.
Wait, you're not serious?
I'm serious. Wait, what?
You don't believe that there's like a Pangea?
I don't think so. I don't think it.
You can't. You're gonna look at the shapes of the continents and be like, those don't fit together.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. There's just stuff in the way. There's too much. There's
what? Water in the way?
Yeah. Somebody dug a big hole in between. It doesn't.
They were very advanced. They knew how to dig a big hole.
Size. What you're thinking of is the part in South America that does this, and then the part in
Africa
that does this. It just doesn't. It doesn't line up right. It's the sizes aren't right to me.
Yeah, but if there's more land, what?
Anyways, we're not talking about this.
You're saying that like Florida and Cuba used to touch. If there's more land there, then that makes sense. Okay, Tim, we can have, you can reveal that you're
Here's
wrong.
the thing. We know that the land of Mu didn't exist. And if there was a Pangea, Mu would have had to be there to connect it.
That's not... Okay.
All right, whatever. Here we go.
Continue.
We're continuing.
We are going forward.
So I don't think there's a lot of weight in Bermuda Triangle. I'm going to close the tab. Ready? Closed.
That's the first time you've ever done that. Do you want a jingle? I'm going to close the tab. Get ready? Close the tab. Close the tab.
I love it.
And then a voice goes, close, 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 close.
So here's another one. Kumari Kandam. This was a series in the 90s that was made to compete with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, but it didn't succeed.
Fair.
Now, this is a land south of...
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, this is good.
South of India. Literally almost at Indiana. Did I send you that video today? Or that post today from that guy? It was like a text message conversation. And it was like this guy texts his girlfriend and he's like, hey, gonna be late. And she's like, why? And he's like, accidentally went to India instead of Indiana. And she was like, come on, just tell me you don't love me. And he like sends a picture of him in India, like, and there's all these cows and like just like all the Indian, like those little 3-car cars and stuff, the rickshaws.
The what? Oh, the rickshaw. And he's just like, that just tickled you, didn't it? That just like, got you good.
Accidentally went to India instead of Indiana.
Let's try to catch the Colts game.
He wakes up halfway through the flight and he's like, "Man, this is like
a long flight.
This flight's really long. Like, what are we just?
This is a big plane to go to
Indiana. Is farther than I thought.
Especially because I'm flying from Cincinnati, Ohio. Sorry, minutes away from Cincinnati, Ohio. Should have just rented a car and driven if I knew it was going to be this long.
Should have just rented a rickshaw and got up there.
Oh my gosh. So over by India.
Yeah, so there's a theory that there was this landmass that connected Madagascar to India all the way out to Australia and Malaysia, like all those islands there. All of that was connected by this massive landmass. So the theory is that it was...
But you don't believe that?
Yeah, not really. I just don't like it as much as the other ones. There's not a lot of reason to not believe it, but there's not a lot of reason to believe it. But the other ones that I do believe that we're about to get to... There's also not as much reason to believe, but I like them more.
They sound better.
So I'm going to close that tab.
Close the tab. Close the tab. Close the tab. Close.
So now we're going to talk about the Richat structure.
Okay.
If you watch a lot of other people who've done studies on this, they will call it the Richat structure. And since I've heard that, thought it was a dumb way to pronounce it. So I pronounce it Richat because I think it sounds cooler.
Okay.
So if you're watching this and you're saying, hey, Tim, you pronounce a lot of things wrong, I'm going to tell you, you do.
If you're watching this and you go, Tim, you pronounce a lot of things wrong, I'm going to go, Yodo.
Like a middle schooler. It's like, no, you! No, you! Anyways, so the Richat structure is this giant, what a lot of people call a natural formation. but people
what a lot of people call a natural formation, but I call alien technology.
Atlantis, maybe. Atlantis, probably. So the Richat structure, also known as the Eye of Africa or the Eye of the Sahara, is this giant circle in the middle of the Sahara Desert.
Yes.
And so it's really kind of interesting for a few reasons, and I'll get to those. But probably the most interesting is that it is this landmass that it's like right in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and it's a giant circle, and then a big valley, and then another big circle, and then a big valley, and then another big circle, and then a really big valley, and then one more big circle. Sounds a lot like what Plato described to me.
Yeah.
And the desert, there's a lot of sand. If you get sand too wet, it's mud, right?
Okay.
No, but here.
No, I'm with you. No, I'm with you. Sure. Go ahead. How deep are the canyons? Are they 100 feet?
Yeah, it's about 100 feet. It's 100. Yeah.
They're 100, yeah.
It's 100. It's like 8 feet. Oh, that's 100.
That's 100 feet. Yeah.
But what most geologists right now, what they say is that...
Dude, you cannot drink anything. You can't drink these Bang energy drinks before you come on this podcast. Like, what a lot of archaeologists, what they say is that you look like you're seeing a lot of colors right now.
I am fine.
You look like you're mentally in Atlantis. Like,
gosh, this topic. These rings, what they'll tell you the rings are, one of two things: meteor hit.
You're bored with that. You're bored with that. You're like, meteor, dumb. No, no
stupid,
way. It's that theory.
Stupid. Or this was kind of interesting.
Or they'll
tell you that it's like the way that the Earth shifted underneath it, just kind of made all these little circles, which is kind of interesting. But I don't like. Why don't we see more of that? If that's something that's possible, I feel like you'd see it a whole lot more, right?
Okay. If it's possible,
yeah. If that's a thing that happens,
yeah. I mean, like, man has been to the moon, but we don't do it every day. So just because it's possible.
First of all, yes, we do. Second of all, they're lying to you.
Okay. Third of all, we're minutes from the moon.
Third of all, the moon's literally in our backyard. Okay, so that ass really punched. Sorry, I'm picking up. I'm pulling up a couple pictures.
Of the Sahara Desert thing?
No, of the Eye of the Sahara, not the Sahara Desert.
What? Isn't that not the same place?
No. Let's talk a little bit more about Atlantis. I need to set something up first.
Oh my gosh, dude.
So where Plato,
dude, you're like.
So Plato,
let's talk about it. You're like, let's talk about it. Like, dude, what? You need to eat something?
Maybe.
What's in those Bang energy drinks?
Dude, a freaking ton of caffeine and creatine.
Caffeine, man. The best. Okay, so more about Atlantis before you show me pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm trying to remember who it was. Atlantis, what Plato says, Plato cites his source for the theory of Atlantis to a guy, I want to say his name is Sonos, but I can't remember off the top of my head, and I can't find it right now, and I don't want to spend too much time looking for it. Thanos. He had a glove. But no, so he was a historian who traveled around and just compiling histories.
Okay.
Lived a couple generations prior to Plato. We don't have really any of his works survived, but we have like secondhand works that reference him.
Okay.
And he claimed to have traveled to Egypt. And when he was in Egypt, they told him the story of Atlantis. And so Plato was recounting that story when he was telling his story of Atlantis. We don't have any of those stories in Egypt. We don't have any of Sonus' stories. So we kind of have the story of a story of a story.
Okay.
But what the Egyptians claim is that they're like the civilization that brought Egypt was the same civilization that brought you Atlantis.
Brought to you by the same people. If you love Egypt, you'll love the other work we've done in Atlantis. Visit Atlantis.dog.
But yeah, so what the Egyptians say is that their original homeland, where their people came from, was destroyed, and they migrated and settled where Egypt became.
Interesting.
And so then a lot of people connect that to being like, well, we know from all the stories about Atlantis that it was super technologically advanced. That explains why Egypt was able to build those giant triangles in the dirt.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know why that's so.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy
funny.
to look at a skyline and go, how'd they get those big sticky buildings? You know, those big triangles in the dirt. Well, in the mud, really, because once the rain gets on the sand, you know how it goes.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, exactly.
So the Egyptians are originally the Atlanteans?
Yes.
Atlantites?
Atlantites? Yes. So yeah, that's what what Plato seems to be telling you. And if you look at the Eye of the Sahara, it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
If you look at it from satellite images and compare it,
Because it still exists.
yeah,
It's still there.
and you compare it to, so here's the Eye of the Sahara. I got to get a bigger version to show you. We'll put this up on the screen for those of you watching. For those of you listening, you just have to imagine you're looking at it. So there's the Eye of the Sahara. So in the middle, you can kind of see those circles. There's a big mountain range that surrounds it. Plato does talk about a big mountain range around it, which is really interesting looking. And then
This is your favorite theory?
this is my second favorite theory.
Really? There's a more compelling one.
But what's really interesting to me is when you compare that to the Egyptian eye that you see all over Egyptian culture.
Ooh, yeah.
Looks a lot like the
Like an
recut
eye.
structure, like an eye, which is freaking crazy, man. So the theory here, if I can, I'll show you this picture again. The theory here is that this once butted up to the to water, and if you look at it, you can kind of see where it looks like there's a flow coming from the middle of that circle, where almost like a river might have flowed out of there, and there was a channel that went out to sea.
I mean, I believe that mountain ranges were formed by water.
Yeah, dude.
Like the Grand Canyon's formed by water.
Yeah,
obviously.
It's really wet at the Grand Canyon. I remember that from that one time we went. I remember all the bees.
That's true.
Gosh, we're never gonna get through this. I'm finding everything way too funny right now. So the theory here is
my
that
jokes aren't even that good?
Water came all the way up to where the Eye of the Sahara was.
Yeah.
At one point.
Obviously.
And it
Drained out.
drained from up in the Mediterranean.
We get it. Just try to do your best, buddy.
And went down through the Sahara into where Atlantis was, and then across. And it's interesting. If you look at the way the sand is flowing, it does flow in that direction. Also, could just be happening because sand's really light and wind moves sand, and so it would blow. But it does kind of look like maybe there was once water that flowed through it. Who knows? Probably people who know a lot about that stuff.
Probably people who were there also know.
Yeah. And so the recut structure is a pretty compelling argument to me. One, because it doesn't seem like that could logically happen out of nowhere. Maybe. Or the Earth is nuts. So maybe. But it does seem to pretty well fit the description. It's like the exact amount of circles. It's got the circles. It looks like water might have flown through.
Do you
there
think it's
at one
man-made?
point. It's got the mountains around it. It looks like it could be.
Yeah.
I would believe it if someone ended up saying, yeah, that's man-made. And there actually has been a decent amount of archaeology where they're finding tools and stuff in the structure. that they can't trace back to any known civilization. But I don't know. And it is logical if it is the society that birthed Egypt that they would leave that area and go to Egypt. It's not terribly far. And you could see how they would end up there.
Sure. Makes sense.
In a land that...
Why don't you like this theory?
Because I like the other one better.
Okay.
1, I like the other one better. 2, we have actual evidence in the other one about how it disappeared. Okay. This one, we don't have much evidence about what happened to it.
Other than it just dried up.
Yeah, other than like, it just got really hot one day, which isn't what Plato talks about. Plato talks about it getting swallowed by the sea, and there's not really an evidence of this ever happening here, unless it was long before what Plato talks about.
Right.
Which could have happened because his dates were way off anyways. We know that. But this would have to be, like, for me to say, yeah, that's definitely it, it would have to be significantly before what Plato is saying.
Okay.
Because it would have to, like, end up under the ocean and then come back above the ocean and get really, really dry and become a desert. You know, like the Sahara.
Yeah.
So I'm going to close that tab.
Close it. Close. That was a really fast jingle that time.
Here's my favorite one.
Okay.
Doggerland.
Here we are.
I love Doggerland.
I was really hoping you were going to be like aliens.
Aliens. I mean, that's viable. That is a theory, but we probably shouldn't just gloss over that. Aliens are a theory.
Okay.
I'm going to
close the tab. Okay. So Doggerland. So, you know Great Britain? Yep.
And how it was like an island, or it is like an island and stuff? Like,
what a rough day you're having.
You know that?
Yes.
But have you heard of Brexit?
Yes.
That wasn't the first time that happened. There was a time when Britain was attached to Europe. And we know that because... what are you doing?
I just hate that you would. That wasn't the first time that happened.
Yeah, they've Brexited before.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
So there's the English Channel right there that separates Britain from the rest of Europe. But at one point, that was connected, and there actually was a giant landmass that connects Britain to what is now like Norway, Sweden, all of those landmasses there. And this is a land that is referred to as Doggerland. We know that it's there because the waters there are very, very shallow. And in the waters, there's evidence of ancient societies all throughout that what was once a giant landmass. Mm-hmm. So the prevailing theory is that there was once a bunch of ice caps all along the top of this continent. So Britain, Norway, Sweden, and Doggerland.
Sure.
And what it did is it did this this thing I like to call flexing.
Okay.
There's a more technical term for it, which I'm failing to find again, so we'll probably just continue to refer to
call
it
it flexing. Yeah, let's just call it flexing.
So it flexed on them, and basically what it was
worst
was when a whole bunch of ice sits on top of a landmass. What it does is it actually pushes that land down and then forces the land around it up. Because it's just like real heavy. It's kind of like a teeter-totter. When a kid that's just tiny gets on one end, and then the buff kid gets on the other end, the kid that's tiny goes up really, really high. And so this land got pushed up, and that was Doggerland. And then the lands on the other side of Great Britain got pushed up, and it became this massive landmass.
Yeah.
But as the ice receded, water levels rose. It slowly started to sink, but it wasn't quite enough to get rid of Doggerland. And there was an island in the center of that mass between Britain and Norway, Sweden, that whole area. And that was known as Doggerland. And to this day, there is that area where that island would have been is considered Dogger Bank because in some areas it's only 15 feet deep.
Yeah.
The water there because it's just so shallow, the landmass that used to be there. And in underwater, in where all of this Doggerland is, we found skeletons of saber-toothed tigers, woolly mammoths, elephants, rhinos.
They were running the town?
Cattle. Yeah, these were the Atlanteans.
They built the city?
Yeah, which is crazy. And so flood levels rose, and then there was this event, an underwater landslide, and this is well documented. Geologists will tell you that wiped out Doggerland and put it underwater for good was this landslide, and the landslide underwater triggered the largest tsunami that we've ever recorded, and so it just sunk all of Doggerland in like an instant. The whole island just went underwater and stayed there, and that was the end of Doggerland. But we found tools, we found like bow and arrows and staffs and stuff underwater there, and even we found bones that show like animal bones that show evidence of butchering. Lots of just stuff that was like there was a society.
There was people here,
under here that lived here and survived here for a long time, and they slowly lost their land and had to go up this mountain until eventually a tsunami hit and killed them anyways.
Bummer.
And so a big theory, obviously, land that was there a long time ago isn't anymore. It must be Atlantis. And so
must be.
It just makes sense. I like this one the most because its name is Doggerland. No, but for real, I like this one a lot because
I like this one the most just because what they call it, you know.
No, I do.
No evidence. No compelling argument. Just I like the way he called it.
The reason I like this the most is because we see a lot of archaeological evidence that something was there.
Sure.
None of the other theories we really have any evidence that anything was there. We know that there was an event that wiped it out in a day, and it was just gone, which is what
Plato said.
Plato talks about. We do know that the inhabitants of the land slowly left and moved into lands like Britain, Norway, Sweden, Egypt.
They migrated somewhere, Indiana.
I thought this was India. But yeah, and then theoretically, they could have traveled all the way down to Egypt, and that's how the Egyptians started. Maybe. There's not really a lot of evidence for that, but I like to think that.
There's not a lot of evidence for it, but I like to think about it sometimes.
But the reason why I say yeah, this is it, is really the biggest thing is that we know that there was the tsunami. The tsunami is kind of the nail in the coffin for me. We know that there was a relatively advanced civilization, and a lot of the geologists theorize. They say, hey, we think a lot of what was early civilization across Europe came from the Doggerland area because we see a lot of the same type of techniques and stuff that was used in agriculture that we found in our discoveries in the Doggerland area. We see the same stuff all across Europe, and showing up at later dates. And so they say that it originated there, and so it's reasonable to think that it's likely that they
are Atlantis.
But that was probably would have happened around 6500 to 6200 BC. So about 8,250-ish years before 19. So it's a little bit too young to be Atlantis.
To be what? Yeah, to be what Plato was talking
according
about?
to what Plato talked about. But Plato's dates were also way off.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just been exaggerating, several thousand years ago.
And even if even still, we do know that the water levels were slowly receding throughout time. Like the event that covered it was in about 6500 BC, but parts of Doggerland were underwater far earlier than that.
Yeah.
And it's slowly receded. And so I think the lesson here is if you live in Miami, it's probably good to move.
I was gonna say, I think in 1,000 years, people are gonna be like, so we just found this place, and there's signs everywhere that say Florida. We think this might be Atlantis.
We're pretty sure this is Atlantis. I mean, who knows? Give it about 1,000 years, Atlanta will be underwater, and people will find that.
People will lose their minds. Yeah, they will.
They even have
Where are those people
falcons.
going to live at? Indiana. You're right. Yeah. Indiana. They'll still be all right. They'll be on the coast, though.
But yeah, that's about all I got on Doggerland, so I'm going to close that tab.
Close the tab. Close the tab. Close.
There wasn't a lot of information on this episode that was real. All of it was just a bunch of guesses, which I guess is par for the course for us.
Well, I mean, like that's what the whole topic kind of is a lot of guessing, a lot of being like, okay, well, because Plato's timeline wasn't on. There was not a whole lot to go off of.
There was not a lot that gave you really any concrete information. So here, let's try this. Let me give you some legitimate information. We know, based on an estimate from 2018, that the population of Atlantis was probably about 498,044. We also know...
What? 498,044?
Yeah, that is an estimation from...
An estimate? Yeah.
From 2018. We also know that they sponsored
I see what he's doing here.
Major state railroad, which is crazy, way ahead of its time.
That's
I haven't even heard of railroads.
That's crazy
at
that
they
did that.
Here's an interesting thing about it. It's the 9th largest metropolitan area in the nation, second only to Doggerland. Des Moines. I'm talking about Atlanta. I'm giving you real stats.
No, I knew.
Atlanta.
I figured that out as soon as you said 400,000.
It started in 1837.
I was like, oh, okay. I see what's going on here. Anything else you want to add to your joke?
No, I'm going to close that tab.
Close the tab. Close the tab. We just ended 2 episodes in a row with me fiddling.
Great. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Things I Learned Last Night. If you want to watch more, you can click on one of these, or you can click one of those buttons down here somewhere to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell icon so you can get some notifications next time we post some stupid videos.